Aztec Development Company presents Jet Spray, an exclusive method for the placement of dredged material using directed thin layer overlays in freshwater bottomland hardwood wetlands to greatly reduce the environmental consequences of dredging in sensitive areas. The Jet Spray's patented horizontally and vertically controlled nozzle placement provides nearly vertical thin layer overlays of dredged material. By providing minimum particle segregation and overlays of 3 inches or less, the jet spray process facilitates the obtaining of critical elevations required for environmentally sensitive projects. With the elimination of berms, containment ponds, pipelines, and the expense of transporting spoil usually associated with traditional dredging methods, the jet spray process preserves and enhances wetlands and marshland ecological functions. As it becomes increasingly more difficult to obtain permits for projects in sensitive wetlands, jet spray is now becoming known for its acceptance by governmental agencies as an environmentally sound means of placing dredged material. The city of Savannah, Georgia recently found the jet spray process to be the solution to reinvigorating their dwindling freshwater supply. Richard Hullman of the engineering firm Hussey, Gay, Bell & DeYoung was the design engineer on the project.
To start really from the beginning brings you back some 13 years, 14 years. Back then the city of Savannah began to notice a decrease in the quality of their water at the I&D pump station, this pump station on Abercorn Creek. At that time they asked Hussey, Gay, Bell & DeYoung to look into it, find out what the problem was. After a number of years of study, it was determined that the Abercorn Creek, which is fed from the Savannah River through Bear Creek, at the upper ends of Abercorn Creek had silted in. They'd become blocked, and we weren't getting the flow of water down which would provide a better quality of water in front of the pump station. Once we've identified the problem, the city asked us to take a look at the solution. And we came up with a number of ideas, but first, before we could do anything, we had to permit. Permitting on this has been at very least challenging. The permit itself has been going for about 13 years. I was involved with it for about 6 directly and responsible for finally acquiring it. And I think the biggest problem in the permitting is, one, that we're dealing in the river swamps where we're looking at all wetlands. The property adjacent to where we're doing dredging was actually owned by Fish and Wildlife Service, which made this extremely environmentally sensitive. We had a number of schemes, and each time that we'd propose one method of work which would be using suitable conventional equipment, we'd propose that, and Fish and Wildlife will come back and say, no, that's not something we can live with. We feel that that's going to be environmentally detrimental. It finally came down to we had to do something. So we got everybody in a room, and it was determined that Fish and Wildlife could live with the fact that we could dredge the existing Abercorn Creek. The problem then arose is to how do we do this by conventional means and make this cost effective. Originally we were looking at using a dragline bucket and side casting, and just working along the channel. We couldn't get a drag line in there to begin with, and we couldn't cast spoil material anywhere because it's all wetlands. It also didn't prove to be feasible to try and work our way in, put the material on a barge and haul it off for obvious reasons. It just cost too much. Through a series of negotiations, we worked with them and finally came to realize that the jet spray system would be the most applicable piece of equipment in this specific instance. We were able to get in there with the least amount of environmental damage. In fact, I've been quite pleased in the work that we're doing. You can see the material deposited in the bank, and it doesn't even run the leaves. What leaves are left on the trees, and the ground cover is still there.
The city of Savannah, due to the low flow of water in Abercorn Creek, was having to spend over $125,000 a year to treat 30 million gallons per day of stagnant, dark-colored water filled with humic and tannic acids. With the completion of the Abercorn Creek Jet Spray project, the city, at a savings of $125,000 annually, is able to satisfy the environment requirements of the Fish and Wildlife and Corps of Engineers, while being able to fulfill the growing freshwater needs of its industrial and residential community. John Robinette, a refuge biologist with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, was instrumental in working with the city of Savannah and its engineers to provide permits for this essential water project.
We had got to the point that the project was becoming a little more acceptable, but we were very concerned about the deposition or the spoil that would be left over and piled up on the banks. We knew that this had the potential to change the plant community in this particular area, and the plants are what we're concerned about, their value to the wildlife and the fisheries in this bottomland hardwood area. Later they came back with another modification to their proposal to use a jet spray dredging device. We've checked with folks in Louisiana, where this has been used a lot more extensively than it has on the Georgia coast, and checked with folks from the Fish and Wildlife Service that had seen these operations, had actually been there and witnessed the impacts and stuff. And then we checked with Dr. Hook from Clemson University, who is an expert on bottomland hardwoods, and got his expert opinion on the deposition of 3 inches of soil on a 200-foot strip, and decided that although there was impacts to this particular type of dredging, that it was something that the project, because of the reduced impacts and because of the temporary nature of the impacts, could still be done and still be compatible with the uses of the refuge. Particularly the impacts to the herbaceous community would be temporary. Those plants would probably respond the following growing season and come back out, or be reseeded or restocked by flooding from the river. The wildlife habitat in the area is a typical bottomland hardwood area. It's got oak trees and cypress and tupelo and gum in there. And one of the areas in particular up on Bear Creek is probably contains one of the last virgin stands of bottomland hardwoods in the Savannah River drainage. That will soon become, hopefully, part of our National Wildlife Refuge, where we can offer that area protection where it won't be cut. It's a fairly unique area.
The Savannah project involves removing 7 feet of material from the creek channel, consisting of an average of 6 feet of sugar sand and 1 foot of gumbo clay, and placing it 200 feet on either side through a wall of hardwood forest into a wetland swamp, in thin overlays not to exceed 3 inches. Due to the non-slurrying tendencies of the sugar sand and clay found in the creek bottom, a new diffuser system was engineered, which breaks up the non-slurrying material into a broad pattern, thereby allowing the foot of the pattern to be manipulated over a very wide area, resulting in the 3-inch overlays. The slurrying knives in the jet spray pump also helped handle the incredibly sticky gumbo clay. If traditional dragline type dredging had been used on this project, it would have required thousands of trees on either side of the creek to be destroyed. Additionally, the dumping of the spoil would have created large spoil banks, forever changing the environmental characteristics of this hardwood wetlands. The jet spray process, on the other hand, allows the existing ecological conditions to remain virtually unscathed. Ken Kelly, a senior resident inspector hired by the city of Savannah, monitors the progress of the project daily.
The total project length in Abercorn Creek is 12,300 feet. The area to be dredged in Bear Creek is 600 linear feet. Average run in linear feet is 250 to 300, with the dredge making a production of about 250 cubic yards per hour. The plan design for the channel is approximately 20 feet wide at the top, and at the bottom it should be about 10 feet wide. The after dredge elevation should be -7 as related to mean sea level. This is the area ahead of the dredge that has been snagged from the front of the dredge to the hoe. And like I said, what the hoe's doing, he's going along removing the obstructions from the channel, and he's also breaking up the bottom to some extent where the dredge digs a little easier. He goes ahead of the dredge. He takes off all the overhanging limbs, all of the snags. He places them on the Abercorn Island side. Other than an occasional downtime for maintenance and whatnot that's to be expected with this type of work, they've made very good progress, and right now we predict that they'll finish slightly ahead of time.
As society faces the challenges of coping with dwindling wetlands and coastlines due to years of environmentally unsound dredging practices, the jet spray process is winning the support of key environmental agencies and the public as well. With jet spray's ability to imitate nature's own flood-ebb marsh renewal cycle by erecting a similar overlay of residual material that strengthens and fertilizes the marsh, we will be able to maintain our current ecosystem for future generations.
I see a real future for this particular type of system. I mean, permitting of dredging projects is becoming more and more difficult, and it takes time to do that, and the big problem that we see in that is, what do you do with the spore? Where do you put it? I see that jet spray is having a real future in assisting with those type of projects where conventional means are just not practical or too costly.
We are finding more and more nowadays that wetlands in the United States are probably one of our most valuable resources for cleaning the water that we drink, and for providing fisheries habitat and wildlife habitat. They're extremely important for all of us, for everybody's survival.
Jet spray is available through Aztec Development Company and licensed distributors and contractors. For further information on the environmental advantages of jet spray services or equipment, contact Mr. Troy Deal Jr. in Orlando, Florida at 1-800-432-4745.
Aztec Development Company presents Jet Spray, an exclusive new method for the placement of dredged material using directed thin layer overlays to construct, nourish, and rehabilitate valuable marshlands. Due to the patented continuously moving horizontally and vertically controlled nozzle placement, Jet Spray is able to provide nearly vertical, thin layer overlays of dredged material with minimum particle segregation